Yeah, now I don't know what I think about Whiplash because of everything that I've kind of gone into with. I don't know if I would say it's. I know. This
That's my
is
favorite.
a very.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, but tell me what you think.
No. It's just because I guess it shows a truth in a way as it is. He chose this, which was arguably a lesser good than the good of him pursuing his family, a family.
Sure.
And
he was content at the end, or there was like ambiguity artistically.
Yeah, he kind of glorified it in a way, but I haven't watched it in many years, so I don't want to like take a hard stance on it.
No, let's try to. I know we spoke about this at the beginning of this, but it was so messy. Let's try to actually narrow this down. So it's an artist's job to, like, an artist's job is also to create an artistically good piece of media, and that ending is, I would say, excellent at the ambiguity in which it ends. You know, he was defeated, and then at the end, him and his abusive professor that he has been kind of battling against the whole movie, they kind of come to a sense of, this was all worth it. You reached greatness, and there's some acceptance in that. You know, it's ambiguous. It's not like, it doesn't show the movie or his actions as good, but maybe your point is that he should have had more consequences to his lack of better pursuits. That's why I really like La La Land. It shows the consequences of them choosing the life outside of each other, and it shows then the consequences of what it could have been. But what I think makes it an artistically excellent movie is that it doesn't tell you what is good or not. Like it still holds that artistic integrity of letting you kind of figure it all out, and it doesn't tell you what is right and what is wrong. I think that's okay for a movie to do. In fact, I think that's what makes the movie good.
I want to agree with you. I'm having some trouble fully getting there because of everything that we've already talked about, metaphysical truth and and I don't want to get into that again.
Yeah, but we're not philosophers.
But
we're artists. Like the artist's job is not just to show moral truth. I mean, a morally good piece of art. It's also to show an artistically good piece of art.
I mean, if you're talking about artistic, La La Land is an amazing artistic accomplishment. I'm not denying that.
I know you're not, but I guess what I'm saying is, what makes a good movie, it's having the artistic merit be at its highest and its moral merit. You know, like if the morality suffers because of the artistic pursuit, then that's bad. But the artist's job is not solely to focus on the morality, but also the artistic nature of it. So
you need both. You can't have just one or the other.
Yeah. So
because then you have the Christian movies, and on the other hand, you have Wolf of Wall Street. Because Wolf of Wall Street would have been a terrible artistic accomplishment if the ending had been right after everything falls apart.
Yeah,
because you had all of this. It doesn't make sense.
That's right.
So, but you can't though. You can't have the artistic without the moral. So,
but I guess the whole reason I brought that up is because they're still artists. Like they still have to focus on the artistic integrity of the movie.
Yeah, but I think I agree more with Aquinas now, to where I say artists are not just responsible for artistic; they're equally responsible to portray metaphysical moral truth, in addition to being artistically skilled and to have a good artistic accomplishment.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's hard for me to disagree with you when you just cited it, Thomas. You're saying, oh, I think I agree with Aquinas, and I can be like, I think you're wrong, because that makes a lot of sense. I just don't have a.
So for example, with Whiplash, I haven't watched it in a while, so I can't take a hard stance on it, but my feeling is that, man, and I haven't thought of, so my whole perspective on art is changing. And so now I'm applying it to Whiplash. Yeah. If he shows, him choosing, I think the artist, Damien Chazelle, definitely shows, what's the name of the guy? Norman?
No, Neiman.
Neiman.
Yeah.
He
Neiman.
Okay, one of those.
I don't know.
And he kind of surrenders to the dream of maybe getting married or his family, or all of these,
that dream,
all of these things, like his vocation from a Catholic perspective, in favor of worldly success. No Catholic would say that's morally good.
But we're making the claim that art can lead someone to God. And so an artist's job is to create the highest, like the best art. Now, granted, his art is hard to see. Is there a moral realm to him being the best drummer? Like, can a great piece of art in his artistic realm be morally good or bad? That's hard to say. you know. But maybe guy has a responsibility to be the best drummer, you know. Like there is
not at the expense of what's, like you said, what's important. What's actually important.
Yeah, but
because you said the greatest artistic
yes.
is co-creation.
Yes, I did
or
say
living
that.
out your vocation. Yeah, living out your vocation. Yeah.
But I also never said that everyone is called to have a
Everyone
child.
is called to be a father. You agree with that?
Yeah, but then I look at brothers, like
They
perpetual
are
brothers.
fathers
Yeah.
to, you know, in other ways, spiritual fathers.
Yeah. But I guess you could be a spiritual father and still pursue your artistic pursuits. I know I'm disagreeing with me from 5 minutes ago, but you're right.
I think this is true. I think you're making a really good point that I hadn't thought about before, is that people that are the greatest at their crafts do have to give up on being a father. Otherwise, you don't have the time you can't. That's why priests don't get married, because they have to devote their whole energy to they can't be split between two things. So maybe worldly success in that sense.
It's not worldly success. It's an artistic pursuit of greatness. And that's why I like the ending of Whiplash, because it doesn't tell you...
Can you explain why it's not worldly success?
Okay, it is worldly success, but it's not just worldly success. Like, there is some intrinsic good in seeking greatness in art. Yeah. So I don't want to just diminish it to, only worldly success. Like, that seems disparaging of it.
I think it's both.
It is both.
It's worldly success, but
it can be good.
You are called to pursue greatness in everything that you do. You should.
Yeah,
if you glorify God. But you're not glorifying God if you're pursuing greatness while at the same time surrendering to everything else that you're called to by God.
Yeah, but you don't know that in this case, in Whiplash, he was called to pursue that woman and get married and have kids.
No, I think it was a metaphor.
I know it's a metaphor. Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm sure Ronaldo has sacrificed a lot of time in being a parent to practice at his art or at his skill. If he was the best person, he would be have that in perfect balance. But maybe his family has taken a hit in his pursuit of greatness.
Of course.
And you could say that that's morally good or wrong. I mean, what would you say to that? Maybe he's.
I don't know. Don't know his life.
I don't either. That's a bad example. It's kind of imprudent.
No, actually, you made a good point with that, because Ronaldo is the greatest. Well, a lot of people say he's the greatest soccer player, and he does have a family, and they look fine.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah,
but we don't know.
Yeah, but that's why I like the movie Whiplash, or I guess La La Land is an even better example of what we're talking about. It was a clear choice. Like you choose the woman that you could see raising a family, and they actually show you what the life would have looked like. Or you choose the worldly success that you're talking about, which is your dream and your passion. And maybe you'll be resentful if you end up doing this other one, but like you're called to. I think all the best art forms are a seeking of your vocation and trying to figure out what that is. Think of like all the greatest movies. It's like trying to find out what our purpose is in this, or like what am I meant to do? Like what is my vocation? And at least it applies perfectly with this law line. So I'm going to assume that all the great pieces of art have that.
I thought of It's a Wonderful Life, and that applies. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in Batman.
It is his vocation, of his responsibility for the city.
Same with like Spider-Man 2. Okay, what is another great movie? Okay, yeah, we could assume that my point stands that the greatest art pieces, I guess movies, show a battle to find your vocation.
I was like, that sounds like a stretch, but anyways,
maybe it is. I don't know. In La La Land, he is unsure about whether he made the right choice. I guess at the end they show like some sort of comfort with their decision. Like the artist doesn't condemn that decision or acknowledge that was a good decision. But I think that's fine for the artist not to make a moral claim in that.
The question is, does the artist show the ramifications of
in that case, they
evil?
did.
No, that's assuming that what they did was evil, which I don't think...
we're getting... This is not an immoral realm. Now we're just talking artistically. Like, what is the best artistic... I don't know how...
It gets complicated whenever you're talking about art, because you're not just talking about the specific case. Because obviously, like, Ryan Gosling could have done his bar and actually pursued a family later on. But I think whenever you create art, you have to agree that it's metaphor. Like, he's not talking about logistically he can find a family in the future. He's talking about, I'm speaking on what's more important, family. So you have to take that into account. Damien Chazelle was saying Ryan Gosling chose his artistic passion over
the life he could have had with Emma Stone.
Correct. Now, does he have a positive Does he have an opinion on it? Does the director have an opinion on it?
They kind of acknowledge. I would say yes. I would say
so.
that they're both content with their decision. They give each other an acknowledging like nod at the end. It's like, I'm okay with this. Maybe I'm misreading it, but it's also good that the director didn't say, and they were happily ever after. And like they show you a very bittersweet ending, and they have that whole movie. You're rooting for them to make it. You know, it's a love story, and then it's like it's not a love story. So. Yeah, I think he did an excellent job at not showing his hand too much. He kind of lets us decide. But I think if what I said at a few minutes ago is true about the greatest artistic pursuit is having kids, because that is literally the fulfillment of us as artists, you know, partaking in God and creating something, then I would be forced to say that anything that chooses that puts something above your family or your potential for creating a family would be bad, and I'm not sure that that's true.
That's why I think that I think La La Land is an amazing artistic movie. I don't know if I would watch it anymore.
Okay, you have to back that up. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? I have been for the past.
Yeah, so you're saying that but I just made the claim that it's a morally good movie. It showed the consequences of your actions.
No, I was saying that I think it might not be.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the claim that okay, why might it not be?
Because of what we were just saying about how he clearly shows a preference for his passion over his duty to.
But he doesn't have a duty.
Okay, not duty, but the higher good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he almost glorifies the passion to the point at the expense of the higher good. And it ends not with the consequences of choosing the lesser good, but with a kind of glorification of
not a glorification, but like a contentment with their decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but how you can't only watch art that you deem to be of the highest morality.
I don't, again, distinction between highest morality promoting virtue and depicting metaphysical truth.
Yeah.
Right reason.
Yeah, but this movie still makes you ponder. Like, part of art is making you question if the artist is right or not.
Art hits you. I think most people don't ponder. Most people don't.
No, I think that movie is excellent at making you question.
Okay, I think it can. But I think you should take into account people as a whole. Most people, I think, watch movies and are emotionally affected by it. And you can be subconsciously affected in the way that you live. You know about this. Like, movies have shaped you a lot.
No, let's talk about Friends, actually. The show, Friends.
Exactly.
Because that show, I didn't grow up watching it. Thankfully, I watched it, I think, after my morals were sufficiently established. And I wasn't able to be swayed by the way they treated casual sex and the glorification of casual sex and multiple partners. Like, I already had my morality established by then. But if I was a kid growing up without my parents instilling those values in me, I would have gotten my values from a show like Friends. I agree with you. Like, that does exist. But I think in a show like Friends, they're not even questioning whether that's good or not.
It's the devil's propaganda.
And I would make that case. And I probably would say that it's not good for, like, Friends is not a good show, because even though it could be artistically good and it's funny, it's morally very deprived. Like,
depraved.
Depraved. However, I don't think La La Land is anywhere in that realm. It might not be at the highest possible moral good, but I don't think it's nearly, like, it doesn't say that it's good that they chose anything immoral. Like, that's just art.
So I want to get to what we were saying about Friends. People are going to think we're crazy. I think it's good acknowledging it, though.
Yeah.
We're just being consistent.
We are being consistent.
Yeah, look at St. Thomas Aquinas and then follow his train of thought, and you would arrive at that.
Now,
Friends is evil.
When I watched Friends, but I'm also not saying that no one should watch it. Like, I think that's where I'm saying that there is a line between how morally formed are you and is it really going to sway you. I agree with you that it can sway you without you acknowledging it. But I think it's not immoral for you to consume. It doesn't have to be. Now, the artist has a bigger responsibility in instilling good values, and in that case, they failed as artists in that way. But I can still find some good in I don't know.
Well, with the principle of integral good, you can't say that it's morally good as a whole. But I think even like the greatest saints would, from a place of humility, like, I know I have my values in shape and in order and everything, but I can still be swayed. I'm still a sinner. I still have a propensity for it. So I'm not going to expose myself to things that are evil. So St. John Bosco has this quote about art.
Oh, but before you move on to that, this was excellent.
This is relevant.
I know, but you didn't even let me process that. That was really smart. You're right. I'm assuming that I'm morally formed now enough to be able to consume Friends. And you just said like a really good point. Maybe like you're overhyping yourself, and it can still affect you even if you don't think it does.
I noticed it in myself. I behaved like today. We were talking earlier about how you were watching a YouTube video of
Pints with Aquinas. Yeah, they were smoking
a cigar.
And I was like, all day I was craving a cigar. I was like, why? And then I realized, I was watching that video earlier. So I came here and I smoked
and you
a cigar.
smoked a cigar. Art shapes a lot of your behaviors in your life. And this is like a trivial example, but it can have more serious effects. And the quote I was getting at with St. John
Not that
Bosco,
smoking a cigar is wrong or in any way immoral.
No.
It's just you're making the point
I
that
think
art
at that point it was good, edifying.
Yeah, I think to your point is that whatever you consume has an effect on you whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
Even subconsciously.
Saint who?
St. John Bosco. He was the one that we learned about Yeah, I told you last. It was one of these past videos. No, it wasn't a homily. It was this talk at the youth ministry.
I wasn't there though.
He was talking about him, and he had these oratories, which were like schools that he had for these poor children, and he would form them, basically educate them and teach them about the faith and all these things. And he really used art and theater, and he really thought that was really important for shaping young men.
I think it's
but he really was very careful about making sure that he read everything so that there was no like you didn't have the French situation. Yeah. French is like extreme for his time.
But it's not extreme like that. Most of today's society, like the errors that we might find in society stems from the fact that casual sin was casual in our entertainment and it wasn't given enough like gravitas.
Yeah,
I agree with that a whole lot. Yeah.
And so he had a quote, St. John Bosco, about bad art, and he said, because someone could object, well, I watch it because it's, artistically amazing and like there's merit to that. And he said, if someone offered you poison on a golden goblet, would you still drink it? So he said, you can have beauty. And then I read somewhere something about beauty being evil being vested in the garments of beauty. Like you can be deceived into thinking.
The Wolf of Wall Street is one of the most best movies artistically produced, excellently. The story is so gripping. The dialogue is excellent.
The pacing,
Leonardo DiCaprio
pacing is crazy.
Has one of the best performances I've ever seen. There's a lot of art, beauty surrounding something that you
but it's evil. Yeah. It's poison.
Oh, we're making a huge claim here. Yeah, I agree with you.
No, it's evil.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
Pornography is evil. Okay. That movie has it's that simple.
Yeah, okay. It's not that simple, though.
It is.
What I'm trying to...
Why not? Is it morally evil or is it morally good? You don't have an ambiguous...
No, I'm not saying that you can be ambiguous about this, but there is it could be more evil, I guess your point is, what side is it on? Maybe it's less evil, but it's still evil, so you shouldn't consume anything that's evil.
I know that I keep going back to Aquinas, but that's because I'm basing everything off of him, and that's why principle of integral good. It's the same thing. No,
maybe you're right. Living in culture today is really hard to avoid all that is evil, because so you're saying we shouldn't consume anything that has anything evil within the movie, and there's a lot of.
No. Again,
no. Evil in the sense that, okay, let's go Peaky Blinders. I'm sure there's sex scenes in it. I'm not sure if they're explicit or not, but there are.
Yeah, I wouldn't anymore.
Yeah, but it's showing the consequences.
Peaky Blinders glorifies.
No, okay, maybe it does glorify it, but it shows the consequences. I mean, Tommy is a very broken man. You can see his brokenness every single episode, especially towards the later seasons.
Okay, you can say that, and for example, the same argument for Wolf of Wall Street. Well, okay,
no,
it's not a fair comparison.
No, because in this other one, it shows the consequences a little bit more.
It's not a fair comparison, but I think I base it off of this. What's my feeling after watching Peaky Blinders? Do I feel like, oh yeah, that's a cautionary tale, and I feel more like...
Yeah, you can though. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
It depends on the person. It can depend on the person.
Okay.
It's not a blanket statement.
So for me, I watch Peaky Blinders, and I'm like, that was so cool. Tommy Shelby's amazing.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
No, and I do too, and most people do too. But I guess it can also be supplemented with, it's also I would not want to be Thomas Shelby. It shows you the consequences of his actions. I think of a show like Succession. You watched Succession, right? Mm-hmm. You're watching scumbags fight to see who's the dirtiest scumbag throughout the whole show.
Yeah.
But it shows you the consequences of living their life. It glorifies it in a sense, you could say, but that's up to interpretation, is I guess my point.
It is. It can seem subjective.
That's what I'm trying to get at. And I hate the subjectivity of things and the relativism of today. But I'm not willing to say maybe that it's evil. we're missing something. I think a distinction.
I don't know. I'm being very extremist about it, but I feel like this is what I think is correct.
Yeah, and I think you're right to press it. Then
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a more nuanced take because I think that knocks out most art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it still art or is it just bad art?
That's what Father Rip says.
No, but it could be art and it'd be bad art.
What?
It's still art. It's just bad art. You'd agree that The Wolf of Wall Street is art?
Oh, I think it's great art.
No, it's not. No, you think it's bad art because
It's great art, but it's horrible moral art.
No, I know, but then it's bad art.
Actually, honestly, if it's so annoying, but it's technically with the Aquinas definition, not even art.
That's what I was getting at. You're locked into saying that it's not art. I think it's art. It's just bad art.
I mean, I can say it's art in like a modern way. It's art. Now, from a philosophical standpoint,
yeah. If you're locked into that definition and we're understanding it correctly, which we very well could be misunderstanding.
No, I thought about this a lot. I looked
trying
into
to give
it.
you it back.
No.
Okay. No, I haven't studied it. I didn't study Aquinas in this at all, actually. So I don't know what he said about it.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm sorry. I need to admit more humility. I think I interpreted it correctly.
And with that interpretation, that would not be art.
It just seems very clear that art needs to be ordered with right reason.
Okay,
And
but then Peaky Blinders can still be art,
back.
or Breaking Bad can still be art, or any depiction of bad characters or doing something immoral, as long as it is metaphysically sound.
Correct.
And it shows this. But that's what I'm saying can be interpreted differently by different people. You said Breaking Bad, I might glorify it too much, or Peaky Blinders, sorry, it might glorify it too much. I'm like, yeah, but I think it shows the consequences of being a man like Thomas Shelby.
I think that's kind of
that's where prudence comes in. Of like,
yes.
Are you 14 years old and very susceptible to?
You're trying to make me more nuanced. I like it.
Thank you.
But I don't know.
Give it to me.
I don't know.
Okay, don't give it to me.
I think it can be pretty obvious when something is being glorified, and there's no debate. You can say we can find the one person we can find the one person in the world, maybe with some, but there are some like Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, that's what.
Is there nuance with that?
Yeah, I think there's nuance in that. It does show the downfall of him, and he's the. I agree with you. I just think I'm unwilling maybe to say that it applies to everyone. And maybe Wolf of Wall Street there's a distinction maybe between. I'm thinking that in the case of Wolf of Wall Street, it's not found and grounded in metaphysical truth of reality. But I could say something like Peaky Blinders is. Now, what I'm trying to say is that you and I can disagree on that. And I'm not sure that there is, I believe there's a truth. And one of them is and one of it's not maybe. But we might just not know it. And to your point, let's just err on the side of caution. Why do something that might not be good? But then you're not consuming art.